I took up golf recently. I thought, I'd never play this game. Old man's game, never do it, but my kids play, so I want to play with them. So I go out, and I do really well. I go out on this one day, and I out-power by my instructor. I'm feeling really proud. The next day, I'm not feeling so proud. I keep putting the ball in the water again. I'm so frustrated. Put down another one. Put down another one. I don't care. I don't care what my score is. Let's do it. And finally, I was getting frustrated. He's going things like, ain't it a bitch? This is golf. And I'm going, bull. I said, you're a terrible instructor. I said, because I should at least be consistent at whatever shitty level I can achieve. I said, I know I'm not Tiger Woods, but I should be able to be consistent, and you're just telling me it's difficult. Telling me it's difficult is not helping. Tell me what to do. He said, well, actually, you're only a little bit off. I said, could have fooled me. He said, no, you're about a millimeter or two off. I said, you're joking. He said, no, watch this. He said, I didn't teach you this yet. He said, when you approach the ball like this, he said, if you change the angle that you're attacking this just 1 or 2 millimeters, in the very beginning, do you see how that changes the arc? This one, instead of being on the green, by 1 millimeter, now you're in the water. 1 millimeter over here, you're in the sand. And he said, and also you're hitting the ground by 1 millimeter sometimes. You're not stroking it, just 1 millimeter. I thought, what a great belief system that when all hell's breaking loose and nothing's working, that you're only 1 millimeter off. Because most people think it's impossible, so they give up. Isn't that true? And in real life, it's true. So 2 days later, I'm going to see one of my clients. I do a lot of coaching, and I have a man who's the top plastic surgeon in the world. He's going through some tough times in aspects of his life. But this is a guy that gets paid by Sultan of Brunei $1 million to fly over and do 3 people's faces. He is the #1 plastic surgeon in the world. He can make anyone who's ugly look spectacularly beautiful. He showed me pictures of a woman who's 84 years old. He made her look 40 and gorgeous, no exaggeration. But you know what? I'm waiting for him in his office, and he's still in surgery. So he's got a new book he's creating to teach other surgeons around the world. And I'm going through, and it's got pictures of, the top 100 supposedly most beautiful women in the world's faces. And then men. I wasn't paying attention to that one. I just kept turning the pages, right? But I noticed something. He's got all these measurements. And he has mathematically calculated what it takes to make someone look gorgeous, man or woman. And it's a few millimeters. Interesting. For example, on a woman, the distance between the top part of your lip and your nose, this little distance, the measurement of that, if you're beautiful, gorgeous, is the same size as your eye. If it's 1 millimeter more, you have an average face. If it's 2 millimeters more, you are butt ugly. Okay. The difference between butt ugly and gorgeous is 2 millimeters. He's got about a dozen of these little 1 or 2 millimeter changes he makes, and it's a different person. It is unbelievable. So a very powerful belief to leave today with would be, nothing's working, I'm 1 millimeter away. What little thing got to change, and when I do, it changes everything. Because I'm heading this direction, I make this little shift. You take that out an hour from now, a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, you have a totally different destination from that direction. But the 1 millimeter change, I'll show you one of them right now. Check this out. Stay in the state of certainty. Some of you lost it. Intensify it, whatever it takes. Make your move. Come on. Make your move. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Now feel that in your body. Don't let go of it. Now watch. Here's the difference between being certain and being uncertain. Did you see that? Certain, uncertain. See if you can find that little spot between the two, where you drop just a little bit of your chest, and you feel it drop, and come back up, and drop it. How many can feel that difference between where you really feel it, now intensify it, and where you dropped it? Is it a tiny difference, yes or no? Yes or no? Now, could you condition yourself to feel great in this state? Yes or no? So what I want you to do is give yourself that opportunity. So the way we're going to do is very simple. We're going to go into peak state. And then we're going to train ourselves. Because guess what? If you're in this state of certainty, and all hell's breaking loose in your life, people can't figure out, you go, move, I'll handle it. People go, he's so lucky, he's so confident. No, here's what I've created for my life, and anyone I know has succeeded. I'm a 17-year-old kid from Azusa, California, with no real education other than self-education, with no background, with parents that did their best, all of them, with no money, but I did one thing. I loved people, and I had an enormous demand I made upon myself, and I sculpted my mind and my emotions to get me to do whatever it would take to achieve and to contribute. But to do that, I did it by using my body and changing my focus. I did it by putting myself in a peak physiology and using what I call incantations. Can you train yourself to believe something? Yes or no? Absolutely. How many of you ever made the fatal mistake of going to Disneyland or Disney World, and while you're there made the fatal mistake of going to a ride called It's a Small World After All? What happens for about a week after you're out of that damn place? You're still singing this thing in your head in 24 languages, right? Well, let me tell you something. How many of you have things when you want to go achieve them and this part of your voice goes, oh, it's not going to happen, or forget it? How many got a voice that sometimes interrupts that good pattern? Say I. And what you want to do is train a new one. So starting when I was 17, I started doing incantations, not affirmations. Affirmation, you go, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. What's the problem? You haven't changed your what? Your what? Physiology. If you don't change your physiology, you won't get anything. So an incantation is not only you speak it, but you embody what you're saying with all the intensity you can. And you do it with enough repetitions that it sticks in your head. Like It's a Small World, now the conversation in your head is always the same and it gives you what you want. So you use your body and your voice. So 17 years ago, I started doing things. I was working for Jim Rohn, this speaker, and I was 17 years old. I had long hair, minestrone soup, acne on my face. And I was trying to call on Bear Stearns type of people and convince them why they should go to this man's seminar and be more successful. I was driving a 1968 Volkswagen that I had earned at $40 a week as a janitor. The only way I did it was park far from the building and then go in, and I love people and I believe, but I put myself in state and I was able to influence people that were far more successful than I was at the time. I would do something that I still do backstage and have done for 23 years because I don't hope I'm going to be in a good state, I demand it. So I do an incantation using my whole body. I'd say, I now command my subconscious mind to direct me in helping as many people as possible alive today to better their lives by giving me the strength, the emotion, the persuasion, the humor, the brevity, whatever it takes to show these people and get these people to change their lives now. And I would do that literally driving in my Volkswagen to a meeting in LA on the freeway for 40 minutes. People are looking at me, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. They're going, I know he's a serial killer. I know he is. But by the time I entered that room, when two people meet, if there's rapport, the person who's most certain will always influence the other person. And I was totally certain, and they were trying to get revved up to certainty. Do you agree with this, yes or no? I do another one because I was poor. I changed my mindset. I kept doing things, but I never got beyond it. I'd say God's wealth is circulating in my life. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are met instantaneously by infinite intelligence, for I'm one with God and God is everything. And I would imagine the abundance of my life, and I would feel so grateful. And a year later, I went from making $38,000 a year to making $1 million a year in 1 year. Because successful people do what failures won't. You follow me on this? You know?
Tony Robbins is perhaps one of the country's best-known motivational speakers and life strategists, and during tough times like these, a little strategy can't hurt, and a little cheering as well. Well, Tony was here earlier this morning talking about using fear to your advantage, and now he's back to answer your email questions. Hey, Tony, thanks for sticking around.
Thank you.
Well, let's get right to it, because we've got Lisa in Virginia, and she's trying to stay positive. She writes, it's hard enough to keep myself positive in the way the markets are going these days, but it's even harder when my husband is very nervous and is making me more nervous, too. How do I deal with the situation when I'm having to keep both of us from worrying too much?
I'd say the first thing you got to do is educate yourself. And what I mean by that is educate yourself about people who've done well in these tough times. Because it's happened before. I mentioned earlier Sir John Templeton, the greatest investor of all time. He made all of his money when markets were crashing. So I put him on our site, thepowerofcrisis.com. And you can go watch that. Let your husband watch it. You watch it and educate yourself. Second thing is, I've been coaching for 16 years now, one of the top 10 financial traders of all time. He's an amazing man. He writes me every single day. I coach him once a week or once every 2 weeks. So I called him last night because this is a man who in 1987, when the market crashed, he made $500 million that day when everybody's afraid. So let me tell you what he said. He said two things. In the short term, he predicted what was going to happen today. He said, I think we can have some rallies, but he said, I don't think it's the bottom yet. In fact, I think it could go down another 20 to 30%, could even be 40. Now, a lot of people hear that and freak out.
Yeah, but that's not very uplifting, Tony.
No, but it is. Robert Prechter is a man who's a friend of mine also. He wrote a book in 1978 where he said the biggest bull market's coming when we were at 800. It's gone 14 times that on the Dow. I called him up and he said, look, Tony, think of it this way. Stocks that were $50 are now selling for 10 or even 5. there's a great chance, based on what happened in the 30s, even what happened in the 70s, some of those will sell for $5, they'll go down to 1 or even 25 cents. But here's what happened in the 30s and in the 70s. In a 6-month period, if you were at 25 cents, it's not going to go back to $50, but it might go to 5. That's a 2,000% return that could happen in 6 months. People need to know that if you stay strong and smart, save your money, be intelligent, this could be the greatest opportunity since you've been alive. Not being positive, based on real history.
So what you're talking about then is just having kind of a grit. And I think that, you know, we forget how much grit we have.
I agree with you.
Especially because we get so comfortable in the life that we think is going to always stay the same.
That's right.
And what we have to remember is we are human beings who have tremendous grit. And in this country, we've proven that. And it's tough. Now, it's hard, however, to explain this to your children. We've got a good question here from Hannah. She's from Massachusetts. She writes, my children watch the news every morning. How do I make sure that they know what's going on in this crisis, but don't get them scared about their lives and our families' welfare? This is a big issue.
It's a great question. I think you have to understand what we flood ourselves with, we experience. And right now, if you turn on the television, it's bread lines and people saying sell everything, and they even may be right, but for your children, they need resiliency. They need to know there's a compelling future. And the best way to do that, frankly, is not just to protect them, but to show them examples of people that have been through it all. So Casey, who was on your show today, you know, this young man lost his arm, and he's as happy as he can be, totally excited about his life and trying to help other people. So again, I'm not just plugging it, but I created this community called thepowerofcrisis.com. People go there from all over the world, and they share their stories. They were raped and they transformed. They lost everything financially. And at the end of it, they'll tell you how I'm better today. If I know at the time I didn't want it to happen, but if it hadn't, I wouldn't be who I am today. I'm happier, I'm stronger, I'm richer inside. And I think if kids hear enough examples of like that, it starts to stick. Whatever you feed them, they're going to experience. So you've got to feed in those great examples.
My dad always told me that tough times are going to make you stronger.
That's right.
That's always a thing to say. Okay, Roger from New York, he worries that his own worry has gone beyond his control. He writes, what do I do when I feel the fear paralysis that happens when my mind starts to run wild? It seems like there is a cascade of doom and gloom thoughts, and I can't seem to take any action. I just worry. You know, people who are not used to having that emotion are having it these days.
Well, we've all had it at different times of our lives. We just forget. And I think what he has to do is, what's a time in your life that you had an enormous crisis, but what pulled you through? Again, we have people go through on that site and answer 5 questions. And what it basically does is help you figure out, where was this crisis before you may have even forgotten about? What pulled you through? What belief? What strategy? What experience? Who helped you? What triggered you? And then what did you do that made that shift? But I would also say, remember one affirmation, if you would, in your mind and your body. Own the fact that money is not your life. This is just money. I mean, when I was told I had a tumor in my brain, later on, years later, when I thought I might lose my wife to cancer, I'm going to tell you something. Money doesn't matter at all. But when we get focused on what matters most, we're there. So I mentioned earlier, getting physical is really important, because fear is a physical thing. So if you sit around and think about it, not just exercise, going for an intense run, lifting weights, something that pumps the blood and oxygen through you, because when you do that, your entire psychology changes. You see the world through a different place. So I'd say it's contrast of other people's great stories. Model the best that's in you. When have you been through these things before? You've been resilient if you're honest with yourself, and get totally physical and make that a ritual for you. And then you'll start to look for role models of how to turn things around.
Can I add one?
Yes, please.
Hug people.
Oh, I love that. Well, come here.
Come here. Hug people. And just, you know, and embrace human beings who are all around you, and make sure that you're a good friend so that they can be a good friend to you, and you'll feel better.
I think the most important thing you do is get outside yourself. If you go out to try to help somebody else, we have a basket brigade, and we feed 3 million people a year at Thanksgiving from all over the world. It's because somebody fed my family. When you go out and help somebody else, you realize you have no problems.
You realize how
lucky
lucky
you are. And you feel like you have something to give. And we all need meaning in our life. We don't want to just get. The life now is about what can you give. That's what'll light you up.
Tony Robbins, I'm feeling lucky because I got a hug from you today.
Beginning, do you see how that changes the arc? This one, instead of being on the green by 1 millimeter, now you're in the water. 1 millimeter over here, you're in the sand. And he said, and also you're hitting the ground by 1 millimeter sometimes. You're not stroking it, just 1 millimeter. I thought, what a great belief system that when I keep putting the ball in the water again, I'm so frustrated. Put down another one, put down another one. I don't care. I don't care what my score is. Let's do it. And finally I was getting frustrated. He's going things like, ain't it a bitch? This is golf. And I'm going, bull. I said, you're a terrible instructor. I said, because I should at least be consistent at whatever shitty level I can achieve. I said, I know I'm not Tiger Woods, but I should be able to be consistent, and you're just telling me that it's difficult. Telling me it's difficult is not helping. Tell me what to do. He said, well, actually, you're only a little bit off. I said, could have fooled me. He said, no, you're about a millimeter or two off. I said, you're joking. He said, no, watch this. He said, I didn't teach you this yet. He said, when you approach the ball like this, he said, if you change the angle that you're attacking this just 1 or 2 millimeters, in the very... I took him golf recently. I thought, I'd never play this game. Old man's game, never do it. But my kids play, so I want to play with them. So I go out, and I do really well. I go out on this one day, and I out-power by my instructor. I'm feeling really proud. The next day, I'm not feeling so proud.